The NFL draft is undoubtedly one of the most exciting, nerve-wracking, but also crucial points of the NFL season, and it doesn't matter who you ask. Whether it's players, prospects, fans, or analysts, everyone has their hopes. After all, the NFL draft is argued by many, including myself, to be the best way to improve your football team, finding hidden gems, drafting best available, or even just filling holes on the roster. But more importantly, there's an engine that runs it all. Front offices. Hours, days, months, and even years of scouting, researching, and analyzing all come down to just 3 long, stressful days. And while it may seem frustrating when your team trades down out of the first round, or when a team takes a shot on a seemingly undeveloped talent, it goes without saying that immense thought and meticulous care is put into every single move. So today, I'm going to bring you on the most realistic 72 hours as a GM during the NFL draft, bringing you behind the scenes where you'll be able to see all the work that goes into being the heartbeat of an NFL franchise, not just Roger Goodell announcing a pick. And make sure you guys snacks, because this one is going to get interesting. So it's hour 0, but more importantly, it's finally draft day. And like mentioned before, countless hours, resources, and sleepless nights among all your staff have been poured in for just one reason: finding your guys. It's a famous term. We've all heard it. We've got our guy. It's probably the most played out phrase among the media, but it's got some meaning to it. Every year, over 15,000 college football players are considered draft eligible, with only around 250 to 260 being selected across 7 rounds of 32, including an additional 32 compensatory picks for players lost in free agency. Whether it's the Bengals drafting Joe Burrow first overall, a move that even my sister knew was going to happen, and that's saying a lot, by the way, or stressing over that one gritty wide receiver who you're praying falls into your lap in the 4th round, the tension is absolutely unmatched. If you don't already know, the general manager has a majority of the pull in the decision making, but don't let that fool you. He's not the only one. It's called a front office for a reason. Before any team is even on the clock, things are everything but calm. Position coaches will advocate for their guys, analysts will pound the table for a guy they've been studying for months, and late, sometimes unsupported or suspicious reports of injuries and off-the-field issues will come in a flurry. Legendary Ravens GM Ozzie Newsome built an incredible reputation just by sticking to the most fundamental but difficult parts of the draft and ignoring most of what I just brought up. It's literally all in your mind. You have to trust your hours of work. The process is so tedious and draining that only a small percentage of people can handle it. And once you enter the war room, the famous nickname for the draft room each team brings together their entire front office in, there's most certainly no turning back. By hour 3, things start to heat up. And although the draft still hasn't started yet, the phone lines become heavily active. But here's where fans start to lose touch sometimes. It's not like the Jaguars call up the Browns and say, hey, we want the 2nd overall pick, we'll give you the 5th overall pick plus some. And that's just one example. For majority of the time, it's back and forth phone calls with many teams involved. It'll start with teams sort of feeling out the landscape. What teams want to trade up? What teams want to trade down? These calls are also where GMs are trying to use their skills to gauge how teams value not only their picks, but also yours. Because again, every team has differing opinions on every player. A guy who is number 2 on the Texans draft board might not even crack the top 10 in the Chiefs draft board. And that's just inevitable. Think about it like a game of Clue, fused with a game of poker. That might sound confusing at first, but think about it like this. You spend hours making calls, discussing, trying to find any clues or ideas about what other teams are doing, while simultaneously trying to keep all of your inner workings within the team to avoid showing your hand. A poker face, if you will. Some teams will straight up mislead you. They'll hint that they're targeting a certain position just to see how you react. Others will act aggressively about trading up to create urgency, hoping that you panic and make your pick before the board even starts to fall. Fans tend to think that trades just happen in the moment, but in reality, a lot of these frameworks are quietly being built hours in advance, like mentioned previously. And these are just the things that silently differentiate a bad, decent, good, and great GM from each other. And this part of the process can only be described as a controlled chaos. On to hour 6, where the NFL draft has finally begun. Even when you aren't on the clock, you begin to apply all the information collected from these hours before. And this is where the front office's resilience really gets put to the test. As mentioned before, trades are an extremely important part of the draft. And in the first round, more specifically the top 10 to 15 picks, are known to be the most pivotal. This is due to the fact that these picks usually include the consensus elite talent, and most often the bulk of the quarterback talent, which is easily the most sought after position early in the NFL draft. If a certain team trades in or out of these spots, and a certain player who you weren't previously expected to be gone is taken, it quite literally can change the entire trajectory of your draft. But you were prepared for that though, right? Well, the answer to that could differ depending on who you ask. Take the 2005 NFL draft for example. With the number 1 overall pick, the 49ers took Alex Smith, in a spot where many expected Aaron Rodgers to go. And after falling out of the top 5 even, he slid all the way to 24, serving as a prime example of how unpredictable things can be. Granted, there were many other reasons for his fall, but that was probably the main one. But no matter how predictable, you can't delay the inevitable. And now it's on to hour 7 and you're finally on the clock. Obviously, the difficulty of the pick can heavily depend on where you're selecting, so for the purpose of this video, you'll be selecting at pick 11. That's your natural pick, no trade, you just happen to be the 11th worst team in ball this season. But let's get it back in this pick. Here I've listed the past 10 11th overall picks. And don't let the high draft pick fool you, there's plenty of room for mistake, as you can see. But the stars who also pop up on this list show its sheer potential. Likely by this point, all of the can't miss talents are gone, and so are all the top of the line quarterbacks, assuming that there were any to begin with. So what's the move? If a guy falls to you, you're a genius for just sitting still. But if you're stuck settling, your fan base will run you to the ground saying you should have traded up for that position of need. But if you overthink it, or reach because you're worried about missing out, this is exactly where mistakes start to happen. But that's enough yapping. The pick is in, the dust settles, and they might not actually think it, but the war room has their guy. By hour 9, assuming you just had one selection in the first round, your long first day is finally over. All 32 selections of the first round are official, fans begin complaining, analysts call out mistakes, but all you can afford to do is think about the next day, because no matter who the pick is, they're all equally important. Fast forward to hour 18, and even though it's the next day, not a lot of sleep has taken place. All of the rankings, backlash, and feedback come in, but it's no use. None of that actually matters inside the building, but it can't be completely ignored either. Ownership notices it, fans react to it. You're balancing long-term vision with short-term perception, whether you want to or not. GMs like Eagles Howie Roseman have become famous for day 2 of the draft, finding solid pieces, depth guys, but also knowing when to take a risk on a guy who could be the steal of the draft. There are countless names that fall into this category, such as Jalen Hurts, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Dallas Goedert, and Cooper DeJean, just to name a few. All those players acquired without a first round pick. So let's make it or break it then, huh? By hour 31, night 2 of the draft kicks off, and needless to say, the draft board looks way different. From a fan's perspective, it may seem a little boring, but for NFL GMs, it's Christmas morning. You're no longer forcing anything. You're reacting, adjusting, taking advantage of how the board played out, and not how you thought it would. And with the spotlight somewhat dimmed, now it's your time to strike. And before you know it, you've reached hour 37, and the second and third rounds have concluded. But there's no shortage of events to reflect on. During these rounds are when the most trades in the NFL happen. So what do these look like? This is where you'll see teams move up 5 to 10 spots. Not to chase a superstar, but to secure a player that they've graded significantly higher than the rest of the tier. It's pretty calculated. If you wait, he's gone. If you move, you get your guy without completely overpaying. And on the other side of the coin, times like this are when front offices decide that some rounds aren't worth their time and that the value simply isn't worth it in their eyes, which results in sometimes trading out of the second and third rounds entirely, opting to secure future picks in return. By hour 48, you might start to catch some Z's, but those who overstay their welcome in that comfy bed of theirs may unknowingly lose out on some real hidden talent. Now, I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you that the Patriots knew that Tom Brady, drafted 199th overall in the 6th round of the 2000 NFL Draft, would be the greatest player of all time, but it's definitely where teams can take a flyer with little risk involved. And that goes back to the point I made earlier when I said that every single pick matters just as much as the last. You never know who this guy could be, no matter how much or how little confidence you have in him actually blossoming. And alas, it's hour 60 and the last 4 rounds of the draft kick off, and the end is in sight. However, you make it a priority of yours to still do your due diligence and not let talent slip through your fingers, especially at the discounted price of the 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th round. Some notable day 3 picks include the aforementioned Tom Brady, but also other massive names such as Russell Wilson, Antonio Brown, and even some more modern names such as George Kittle, Stephon Diggs, and Tyreek Hill, and that's just naming a few. Even Brock Purdy, who was Mr. Irrelevant, which is a nickname given to the very last player selected in the 7th round, marking the end of the historic night, made it to a Super Bowl as the starting quarterback and is still the starting quarterback of the 49ers right now. Needless to say, it's not worth scoffing at, so don't screw it up. Because another way GMs are graded by not only the owner of the franchise, but also other voices that matter, are by clearly studying the discrepancy between their day 1, 2, and 3 picks. Because even I could have sent the pick in for Joe Burrow at number 1. It was always Joe Shiesty. But jokes aside, congratulations, because you've reached hour 72. 72 hours of non-stop calls, board shuffles, trades, debates, and gut-wrenching decisions. From the first pick under the bright lights to the final late round selection, you've seen how every single moment in the draft is interconnected. And the craziest thing about it all is that even as the war room empties and what seemed like the weight of the world is finally off your shoulders, every single player that you selected will be watched, evaluated, and developed. Every pick has the potential to become a cornerstone or just fade into absolute irrelevance. That's the beauty of the NFL draft. The pressure of being a GM is that the story of this draft will unfold over years, not just hours, and what critics say and what fans might think usually turns out to be different. So, thanks for coming on a ride with me, going through the grueling 72 hours of being a GM during the NFL draft. A time span that while we sit on our couch and voice baseless opinions out loud, A GM's entire career could change within hours. Thank you for watching, and if you like what you see, please consider subscribing for more. Peace out.